Hello and welcome back to another episode of Injustice For All MMA. My name is David, and this episode is for UFC Fight Night, Strickland versus Imavov. First of all, Happy New Year to everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. We're going to go straight into the card. First thing, I'm sure you already know this by now, but it was redeemed for Strickland. He got his win back. I mean, he didn't get it directly back, but they didn't screw him. Obviously, this fight was a lot more clearer than the last fight he had, but there's no way they could have taken this away from him. We'll go straight into it. There's no honor. There's no injustices. No one got robbed. It was a close one though, but no one got robbed. We go straight into the honorable mentions. First honorable mention is Rebecki, but I'm going to say Rebecki because that sounds cooler. Rebecki versus Fiore. This fight, I had this fight scored 30-27 for Rebecki. In that very first round. Okay, in that very first round, Rebecki outstruck Fiore, had a takedown with some ground and pound. He outstruck him so much that it kind of gave the optic that you could give a 10-8, but I think Fiore did enough to warrant off a 10-8, but we'll get to that. In the second round, both had a takedown, but Rebecki had ground and pound, and he outstruck Fiore. I think that was the round where Fiore was kind of he almost mounted like a little comeback, but the tides kind of turned, and he lost the round. Third round, Rebecki had a takedown with ground and pound, basically at like the 3-minute mark, and that's essentially how the round ended. You go to the judges' scorecards. Junichiro Kamijo had a 30-27 for Rebecki. Saul D'Amato had it the same. And then Tony Weeks, he had a 30-26. He gave a 10-8 to Rebecki in the first round. I understand where I get it. I get it. It was just Rebecki just going forward. I do want to say a lot of Rebecki's shots were missing. So while he did obviously outstrike Fiore, a lot of his shots were missing. A lot of his shots were just shoulder, body. I don't think it was enough to give a 10-8. I don't like the 10-8. But whatever, we'll just move on there. Next honorable mention is Ribeiro versus Alhassan. This fight ended in a knockout for Alhassan in the second round. But in that first round, Ribeiro outstruck Alhassan. That's why I gave a 10-9 for Ribeiro. He was outstriking him in the first part of the half, and then there was moments where Alhassan started to clinch. But even in those clinching moments, Alhassan didn't do enough to turn the round in his favor. He clinched a lot. And I'm noticing this trend. Fighters have mentioned it where like, oh, the judges were looking at clinching. And it's like, okay, sure, but it's what you do in the clinch that matters. And Alhassan didn't do enough to where he warranted off Ribeiro's strikes on the feet. And even in the clinch, you can make an argument that they were either close on strikes in the clinch, or Ribeiro outstruck him in the clinch, even though he was being held up against the fence for most of the time. We go to the scorecards where all three judges gave the first round to Alhassan. That fucking makes no sense. All three judges gave it to Alhassan. I rarely do this. I think all of them are wrong. Honorable mention to all three. Mike Bell, Chris Lee, Adelaide Bird. I think that's wrong on all three scorecards. There's nothing else to add to that. Third honorable mention, we go to Basharat versus Mendonca. Mendonca. I'm going to say Mendonca. Basharat versus Mendonca. I had this 30-27 for Basharat. In that very first round, Basharat outstruck Mendonca, and he had a takedown. Mendonca had 3 takedowns, but the funny thing with those is every time he had the takedown, Basharat would get up. He did literally absolutely nothing with those takedowns. They're irrelevant. Basharat wins the round. You go to the second round. Both had a takedown, but Basharat's the one who had ground and pound with it. Again, Mendonca seems to get a takedown, but doesn't do anything. I don't want to use the word doesn't do anything with it as if he had ground control. It was mostly just he got the takedown, and Basharat would just get up immediately. So both of them had a takedown in the round, except Basharat would be the one who had more ground and pound. And he outstruck Mendonca on the feet. In the third round, pretty much the same thing. He outstruck Mendonca on the feet. He had a takedown with a little bit of ground and pound. In that last part of the round, I was getting a little weary because Mendonca was very active on the bottom, so active to the point where I was like, "Oh shit, is this gonna change how I score this?" But he didn't do enough, or he did a lot of work on the bottom. But Basharat was keen to it and then started to add some ground and pound instead of just laying on top of him. We go to the judges' scorecards. I'm sorry. I had a 30-27 for Basharat. I think I said that already. Mike Bell had a 30-27 for Basharat. Ron McCarthy 30-27 for Basharat, and then Adelaide Bird she gives the last two rounds to Basharat. She had it 29-28, and she gives the first round to Mendonca. Honorable mention to her. No, he was outstruck. Yes, he had 3 takedowns. Did nothing with each takedown. Not his round. Honorable mention to Adelaide Bird. We go to the next honorable mention. Viera versus Pennington. This fight ended in a split decision for Pennington. I had this 29-28 for Pennington. The first 2 rounds I gave to Pennington. The last round I gave to Viera. In that first round, Pennington outstruck Viera. I know the strikes were close, so the strike numbers look to be close. If you're just watching this, they're not. Yes, the strikes are close, but you know who's winning. This seems like the Strickland thing all over again, where when strikes are kind of close, right? I guess scorecards just get all wacky. Round 1 is clear. Pennington outstruck Viera. In the second round, again, it's a little closer, but still, and even when they showed the strike numbers again, they showed that Viera had, it was like 27-26. Nonsense. She was outstruck in that round as well. Third round is the only round for Viera, where essentially what separates her from Pennington is just the massive amount of clinching. And in the clinching, Viera was able to separate herself, where she just kept hitting, where there's no way you could give it to Pennington at that point. You go to the judges' scorecards. Mike Bell had it 29-28 for Pennington. His scorecard reflects mine. Derek Clearly, this one's a little confusing, right? Because he gives the first round to Viera, nonsense. He then gives the second round to Pennington, fine, and then he gives the third round to Pennington as well when she got outstruck in that round. So I'm confused as to what's going. You know what's funny about that one is even if you were to just go, hey, clinch strikes don't matter in that third round. The strikes were pretty close on the feet before they even got to the clinch segments of the fight. So it doesn't even make sense how you could give that to Pennington. I mean, maybe he's just like, oh, those strikes were more impactful, blah, 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 whatever. Nonsense. Don't honorable mention to that whole entire scorecard, but he gives it to Pennington still. And then Saul D'Amato, it gives the first round to Viera. Nope. And then he gives the last round to Viera. That's correct in the second round. So we're in a little, if anything, that's the best to wrong scorecard. So yeah, there's that. And then the last honorable mention is Strickland versus Imavov. In my head, I was like, I know they have this right. There's no way they don't have this right. And you know what's funny? When I'm watching, when fights are paced this way, where you can easily count strikes, I'm so confused as how to why they didn't do the same thing for the Cannonier fight. Because if they just did that, they would have gotten 4-1 on all three, or at least 3-2 Strickland on all 3 scorecards. But instead, 2 other judges saw it the other way. Last honorable mention, Strickland versus Imavov. I had this 49-46 for Strickland. I gave the first 4 rounds to Strickland. Last round obviously goes to Imavov. In the first round, it's close on strikes, actually. If you're counting, it's close on strikes, but Strickland obviously outstrikes Imavov. In the second round, Strickland barely outstrikes Imavov, and he had a takedown. Even if he didn't have the takedown, I think he'd still win because he barely outstrikes him. Third round is definitely the one where he's off. He's off, right? He outstrikes him so much that I don't even think you can. Once you get past, I think, a little past like 10 strikes and you're watching it, you're comfortable with just not counting strikes anymore. You're good. He won that round. The strike numbers continue to say they're close. Even throughout the entire fight, they were just like, these strike numbers are close. I disagree. I don't know why they kept saying that, but the strike numbers were not close in that third round. Fourth round, same thing. He outstruck Imavov in that fourth round for sure. I believe it was the third or the fourth where he was going insane. It might have been both. And then the fifth round is where Strickland just decides to take off, or he gets tired. I think he just got tired. That's my personal opinion. I think he got tired because he essentially just starts to clinch. Imavov starts to really just go forward. And that last round I gave to Imavov. And Imavov outstruck Strickland in that fifth round. You go to the judges' scorecards. Okay. You go to the judges' scorecards, and you see Saul D'Amato has my exact scorecard, 49-46. Derek Cleary, again, I'm confused by Derek Cleary's scorecard, right? Because in the hold on. Yeah, he scored the weird. He scored the Ribeiro Pennington fight, and he mixed up the rounds. Anyways, back to the point. He has a 49-46 for Strickland, and then Mike Bell gives the second round. I'm so lost. He gives the last round to Imavov, and then he gives the second round to Imavov as well. Again, let's just say they're close on strikes, right? I think Strickland barely outstrikes Imavov, but let's say they're close on strikes. Strickland had a takedown. That should edge you over. Nope. He gives it to Imavov. Honorable mention there. And that's all we have. This was a great start to the year. Nice card. Nice card so far. We're probably going to get we got a big pay-per-view next week, and hopefully things keep rumbling. What's going to kill me is definitely the Spivak versus Lewis fight, because I'm going to be, what is it? It's 12 o'clock main card. Well, 9 o'clock for the prelims, my time. 12 o'clock main event, my time, main card. So basically, if you add 3 hours to that, because every card is 3 hours approximately, I'm going to be up till 2, 3. So, whatever. We'll see how that works out. Again, thank you all for listening. Please subscribe. That would help greatly. And God bless.